Hello, students. What I'd like you to do in your book is like to bring you to page 350 and take a look at figure 10.1, where it has summary of conflict and negotiation. And you could see in the summary, you have your sources, your process, and your styles, where that's under conflict. In conflict management strategies, you have interpersonal, structure, and cognitive. And under negotiation, you have situational factors, success factors, strategies, and mediation. So, the thing about conflict is that, as the book states, we can all remember when we've had some type of conflict, some type of a disagreement, whether it be domestically or at work, something is going on when one party thinks that the other party isn't being as straightforward or as accurate as they should be. But the thing to remember that conflict does occur at many levels of an organization. It can be between two individuals, personally or at work. It can be uh, at work where it could be interdepartmental, or it even could be between the organization and the stakeholder, government and community. But all conflicts don't always have to be positive. They can be disagreements that need to be worked out. I'm sorry if I said that backwards. All conflicts don't have to be negative. They can just be disagreements that have to be worked out. Um, we could take the interactionist approach, and that encourages conflict as long as the conflict is functional and leads to a good outcome. Now, the interactionist approach, okay, is an approach which encourages conflict as long, and this is the definition, as long as the conflict is functional and would lead to an outcome that is satisfactory. Now, taking that one step further, okay, and give me a half second here because I lost my place. Um, we look at conflict. All right. We always said that people don't like change in organizations, right? People don't like to move from point A to point B. Why? Because, and I said this so many times, individuals look at conflict as something that is very negative, but it can be productive. This is what a lot of the scholars are saying. Because in order to promote change, to have innovation, you got to take people out of their comfort zones. So when we talk about the interactionist approach to conflict, that if you have too much like same old every single day, all right, if you've got that type of an environment, think of how counterproductive that might be. You're going to be bored. You're going to be like, okay, start getting on each other's nerves because human nature is you want to do things that are in harmony with one another to a point, but also promote a lot of interactive activity that is going to make things improve. In other words, you need challenges. And so, conflict, like, okay, I have a way to do this better. That's coming from the subordinate. Boss turns around and says, hey, you know what? Okay, I'm the boss and I don't have to listen to you. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So now a lot of animosity begins to build, and you need some level of conflict that is going to make individuals more competitive at work. You got to give them challenges. So we have what we call functional conflicts and dysfunctional conflicts. So functional conflicts basically they encourage achievement of tasks, unlike dysfunctional. Dysfunctional conflicts certainly don't do that. All right? Dysfunctional conflicts, those are good pumps on the functional conflicts. Dysfunctional conflicts, basically, they detract from achieving goals and performance. It's negativism. It's like, okay, get off my case. I can do this better than you with my eyes shut. That isn't the type of conflict that is functional. It's almost like when you have good and bad cholesterol, right? The good cholesterol is like the functional conflict. That's the rotor. It cleans everything out. It makes sure that everything is pumping fine through the blood. The dysfunctional conflict is like the LDL, all right? The bad stuff. That's the stuff that clogs up the arteries. That's the stuff where you got negative people walking around that you really don't need. And again, sometimes these are the people that are bored. They need challenges. Leaders need to know that in organizations. So they're not all conflict is going to be equal. Conflict can arise from three primary sources. That is process conflict, task conflict, and interpersonal conflict. So let's talk about process conflict. That affects the work process itself, how the work gets done, and has a negative impact on results. Whereas task conflict is about disagreement of specific tasks and how to accomplish those tasks in a way that's going to be more productive. I need more challenges. We have disagreement, but we want to make things better. And a lot of times, conflict can rely on um, bad relationships. And that means that do we have the right people with the right tasks? Are they bored? Are they challenged? Now, interpersonal conflict is okay, this is dysfunctional. It can improve productivity or it can prevent it, depending on, as your book says, the type, the scope, and the parties that are involved. And I want you to take a look at table 10.1. And that kind in your book, and that kind of shows you the three types of conflict. Process conflict, by definition, conflict that affects the process, the work process negatively. And they gave you a good example. Task conflict, conflict around disagreement of specific tasks and how to accomplish them. They give you a nice example. And interpersonal conflict, which is conflict that arises from relationships at work. All good examples. Hold on, it just kind of logged me out for no reason. Okay. Now, let's go through the 5-stage conflict process. Stage 1 is latent. Stage 2 is awareness. Stage 3 is felt. Stage 4 is open. Stage 5 is outcome. So I want you to take a minute to read each one of those stages. And I'm going to walk away for a minute to get some water. Okay, I'm back. So let's talk about latent first. Latent conflict is the first stage. People on, as your book states, page 351, people aren't even aware that the conflict exists. However, the potential for conflict exists due to scarce resources, differing goals, and desire for interdependence. We've all gone through that. People don't even know around them that there's a problem. Other departments that influence the department these individuals are in could be making decisions that they don't even like. And I think one of the things the book talks about is, for example, HR wants to make sure that a manager's pay is consistent throughout the organization, but the marketing department wants a top performer to get more. Stage two is awareness. In stage two, the parties become aware of their disagreements, but differ in what they think causes the disagreement. So the idea is one side tries to blame the other. We talked about values before. Each side has its own set of values. Yeah, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. This is the way things should be done. And now this whole thing within the culture of the department becomes dysfunctional. And it takes a good leader to say, hey, this isn't right. We got to break this up. We got to do things a little bit differently. Stage three is the felt. That's the third stage. Now, that's when the felt is like, oh my God, what is going on in this department? A lot of people are feeling stressed about it. What was a smaller problem now in the minds of the individuals in the department gets blown up to be a much bigger problem than they originally thought. They become emotionally involved, they get stuck in the fog of things, and they can't actually focus on their tasks. Personalities conflict, and things begin to break up. That is really a problem. In stage four, we have the open stage. And that's when the real what hits the fan. They go for the jugular, and one side, one group, or one party decides to threaten the other. And what does it do? It deters from what we're trying to accomplish in the first place. First place. Emotions. Emotions get really, really high here. And people kind of go in their corner, and as the book states, they compete in their own interests. So we got to do something here. So we come to stage five. And stage five is the final stage where we need some type of resolution of the conflict. The conflict becomes resolved because both parties at least agree to disagree. They realize what they need to do is solve the problem in the most amicable way, and they can only do it once they get through stage three. They need to get on their game and figure out, first of all, agree to disagree. Secondly, figure out what both sides need. It's like negotiating a contract. Somebody has to give something up, somebody has to gain something, but both sides have to realize what they need to do to resolve the problem. And if the conflict isn't resolved in this stage, as the book states, you go back to stage three again. And hopefully, it won't escalate to too big of a deal. So, this is the end of phase one of the lecture for today. Please take 10 minutes to go back and review what we just talked about, and we'll go to the next phase.